Dr. Jazz.
Thanks for taking the time.
Dr. Jazz.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate it. I have you on so many records.
How you doing?
All good. And you?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Just trying to navigate some stuff here. Got a lot going on today, and I'm trying to squeeze this in.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I know we've been planning for it for a while now. So.
Yeah. Thanks for finding the. We won't be too. I mean, depends how much you'll talk. So, but I'll just jump in. Uh, I wanted to start this talk with the color of US or us, how we want it, sweet and
Us, color of
yeah.
us.
And I really like that record. And I wanted to ask you, like, if you've been preparing something new as a band leader. I saw you played it at Dizzy's with your own quintet, and but is there like a new
Yeah.
album coming out
hmm
in the upcoming months, or like what's happening on that department?
No, I'm working on some stuff. I've been kind of preoccupied with some different kind of stuff, music for film
Oh,
and
really?
stuff like that,
Oh,
and doing some stuff with other people's projects and but I still have my band working and we're trying to work some things out because on that particular record that you mentioned, I like the way we recorded it because we did a lot of gigs before we recorded it, and the recording was actually a short recording, maybe 4 or 5 hours or
ooh,
something.
oh yeah.
And it was pretty much a band at that point. So I'm trying to take that same route this time. Just working out some stuff. When we play live and seeing what works and what doesn't work, and eventually, I'll put some more stuff down on a recording.
Mm, yeah. How
Yeah,
do
so
you compose?
it'll be something coming out.
How do you
Not sure
compose?
when, but how do I compose?
Yeah, for these groups, because when I listen to your compositions, they're quite complex, harmonically and melodically and rhythmically. They go through different areas. Like, do you have like this Ellingtonian vibe that you have the players in mind, or like do you have like a daily routine or?
Um, well, I would say one of the reasons for me changing the concept of how I do a record now is because I want the individuals to bring something to the music. And, I find that I get much more ideas, many more ideas with doing it that way because, I'm surrounded by, a lot of really good musicians and uh, I'd like to take into account more, what they have to offer to my music because they might come up with something, that I haven't even thought of. And it happens all the time. And so now I'm like, oh, let me throw that in the mix, put it down on paper,
Mm,
and it becomes more of a true reflection of a band effort,
yeah,
opposed to it just being my music and they learn the music and we play it. And I would like more input because I know they have a lot to offer. So I try to take that route from now on.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it is kind of more or less about the band members, you know, as much as it is the compositions.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they're actually part of the process now. So
What about the initial
yes.
ideas? Where do you get them? I mean, how do you compose on piano or?
I might. It depends. I write more now in collections instead of just writing all the time. I wish I did have the time to just sit down and write all the time, but I don't. So I'm more project based in my thinking, I guess. And I find that when I write as a collection, when I think about the music as a collection, it has I think about it like film. I have a theme, and I try to follow that theme as much as possible. I'm not saying it always works, but that's the goal, is to try to paint a picture out, that depicts whatever theme I'm trying to present.
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart, man.
So, with the last record, just looking at all the stuff that's going on politically and
Yeah.
socially, and in conjunction with the fact that artists have written about things that was going on in their time. uh I thought I'd just follow that path, because if you look at all the artists I like, they have at least one record where it's like socially, or inspired or something like
Sure.
that. So looking at the fact that I have a daughter, and she has to grow up in this kind of toxic political climate. um I just started thinking about stuff as it relates to that, and I had done that before this stuff was kind of on the horizon, and I kind of saw it coming. And I was just thinking about, what if we just all change our thinking about stuff,
Mm,
and be more and look at stuff as from a more inclusive point of view, instead of a more exclusive point of
yeah.
view, and just kind of paying attention to you know being a musician. You get to travel, and you get to see a lot of different cultures, and experience a lot of different cultures, and see things that you probably wouldn't normally see otherwise. And unless you just decide to travel, which a lot of people don't get to do.
Sure.
You get to see different sides of things. You get to see, you get to experience different ways of thinking, um,
Yeah.
and it kind of opens you up. But then you look at the different cultures, and I say to myself, well, some people have a culture to go back to. This is a nation of immigrants. So, like, if you take a country like Japan, there's
Yeah.
many things that tell you if a person is Japanese or not. But when you look at an American, what does that look like?
Yeah.
So I think it's more about the ideals than the initial presence, or face, or look, or whatever. It's more about the way of thinking. So I thought about, like, what if we focus on our common grounds, and what if we focus on the different things that immigrants have brought to the country, and what does that
Mm,
look like when you put it all together? You know,
yeah.
I talk about things in colors, like, red
Yeah.
probably represents blood that a lot of people have spilled on behalf of this country. You know, Black, brown people, white people, everybody has spilled some
Yeah.
blood over this country. So I kind of use colors to just talk about different things, like the color white that represents a clean slate.
Yeah.
As far as, like, you're looking at you're a painter, you're looking at a canvas, and it's like, okay, let me just clean all this stuff up. Let's start fresh with a new way of thinking. Now, what am I going to paint? How's that painting going to look now? How's that going to represent our color? What's our color? And blues. We think about blues. That's you know definitely an American thing. Um, but blues is also looked at as a thing that's kind of a vehicle for dealing with negative things.
Mm, yeah.
It's so, what if we flip that, and think about blues in a different kind of way now, because just like jazz used to have a bad rap, now it doesn't have so much of a bad rap.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people have worked hard to put it into different arenas and clean it up and, you know, make people look at it a different type of way.
Yeah.
So all those little things are, you know, going on. And then you got, you know, people. I was brought up, you know, my teacher taught me to think about like, okay, you're using that word jazz, but just know what that means.
Yeah.
When you say that, like you gotta have, you know, don't just use that word because we didn't give our music that word. So before all that stuff started, you know, this is old stuff, you know. So, you know, my thing is like, okay, uh, you know, we're talking about this country, how do we make it stronger? And I think it starts off with you know, reconditioning.
Yeah.
You know, if you listen to Frank Lacy on that record, you know, I wrote some words that
Yeah.
I wanted him to say, but he has that voice where it's like a
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
kind of preacher,
Yeah.
you know, black church preacher voice. And, you know, I only heard him saying this stuff. So it's like, but if you listen to the words, you know, he's talking about just a reconditioning, you know, letting new flowers bloom from our minds and blah, 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 you know, and not until we I have another quote in there. I forgot what I wrote, but it's basically saying not until we get rid of that thinking will our color become clear, which means, you know, it's a play on words. Color is like no color,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
also a way of understanding. You know, it's like now you understand. So you know, you know, and people probably read the liner notes. Like, you know, one guy, you know, he like my first review was like, the guy slammed me, you know,
Oh
which
shit,
is, you
really?
know, cool. You know, it's
Okay.
all, oh no, he body slammed me, but it's you know, it's all good because you know, I just look at it as you know, I'll flip that and look at it as well. You know, some of the greatest artists, some of the
Sure.
ones I love the most, have all gotten bad reviews. So you know, it means something, and but then it doesn't.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
you know, but if I got on their nerves a little bit, then you know, I look at it as maybe I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
So so basically, you know, that record, you know, regardless of how people take it or whatever, it's definitely presented in a you know, I try to present it. It's definitely coming from a place of caring and wanting to do better and wanting to include people.
Mhm.
You know, and when you put, you know, all this stuff that all the immigrants have to offer, all the people who came to this country have to offer, when you put that together, then what are we sitting on? You know, it's like we'd probably be sitting on something really great if people
True.
think about it,
Yep.
you know.
True.
And so it's, you know, it's you know, it's a lot of different stuff. But anyway, I was just kind of inspired by, you know, just watching TV one day and my daughter asked a couple of questions and it's like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's something to think about. You know, it starts off with her, you know, speaking and you know,
Yeah.
so I'm glad you like the record.
Oh, it's
And you know, I'm glad you're giving me a platform to kind of explain it
yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, not that I feel that I have to. I kind of let people take it how they
Sure.
wish,
No,
and
but I mean, you know, we're here.
that's part of being an artist. You know, you have to put yourself out there, and everybody's not gonna love you, so it's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah.
You know, as long as people check it out, and you know, if you walk away with it from it with a negative feeling, then okay, I'm good with that.
It's a
You
strong
know,
record,
it's
really.
all good.
Yeah. It's a strong record.
Well,
You know,
thank you.
all of your records as a band leader,
But
I
just you know, as far as the,
I would,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm saying like all of your records as a band leader are really, really strong records, you know, like the crisscross stuff
Oh,
and
thank you, man.
beautiful stuff.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh, Donald, I wanted to ask you about the band also. You know, because I know you seem to have like really long-standing relationship with all of these players. I mean, I especially David Gilmour and Ben Wolf. I think you've been playing for such a long time. And uh, how did you select those guys,
Hmm.
and what does that mean to you? I mean, as a band leader also.
Well, sometimes you know people's history, you know them on a personal level. Um, you've played many gigs with them in other situations. So there's a familiarity there. And not only just personally, but just musically.
Musical, yeah.
And and I kind of see like some of those people you wouldn't think, would work in the kind of music that I like to write. And but that's on purpose because they bring a certain kind of experience to the situation that maybe I don't have,
Mm,
but I know they have it. And um, every person is in that band or in my band for a particular reason, and it's usually taking somebody and putting them into an arena where you probably wouldn't hear them very often.
yeah,
Um, so like if you listen to the music Ben writes,
yeah,
or you
exactly.
look at his resume and the people he's played with, you probably wouldn't say he would be in my band.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But you, you know, so but he brings a certain kind of validity to, I'm not a jazz purist, but I'm old school at heart. I like probably a lot of the same people you like, if
yeah,
the jazz greats, and I've checked all that stuff out. But I also have there's another side to my history that I don't feel like I need to ignore. So I grew up playing a lot of R&B music and
mm,
stuff like that, a lot of New Orleans type stuff. And so, I like to just own that stuff and, because it's if everybody owns their experience, they don't have to try to be different. It
yeah,
just ends up like that because no two people are the same. So if you just go like really be honest about, who you are and your influences and just go with that, it's I think it's the most effective for that individual and it's more honest, so
yeah,
and I think that those two things kind of resonate, it helps resonate with people more, so and I wasn't always in tune with what I like or what I want to
sure.
sound like, it just but it became easier if once I just became more accepting of whatever my thing is, Well, so once you get to that spot, it's like it just makes it easier. You're not thinking like, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. You just
Yeah,
go with what you hear, and it's a natural reflection of who you are. I mean, that's just. And then, on the other hand, you have situations where, you want to do kind of, tribute things or something like that, or uh, where I'll probably never do a tribute and do anything exactly like, somebody else did it
yeah, yeah,
because you always want to interject yourself in there a little bit. So, but still, my number one rule for myself is just be honest, just be who you are, in your music, and that'll set you apart. It's not saying it's going to be like reinventing the wheel, but it's just you're going to have your little lane,
yeah, yeah,
and I think everybody has that, everybody that's honest with themselves and in their music and in their thought process, and just you can hear it like, oh,
yeah,
that's so and so because he does this thing, oh, that's so and so because she did she always does that and nobody else does that,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So
sure.
um yeah, so I have those little rules for myself, besides just techniques for composing.
Sure. Yeah,
That's another thing. um I'm a drummer, so I, probably and I think drummers who write they usually have a slightly different take on stuff,
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
you know. So so I like to hear drummers who write. I love to listen to their
Oh, me
music,
too, man. Yeah, me too.
and even I like to hear other drummers play my music, and
Mm,
it's always refreshing,
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, the drummer is the key, man. I never get. I always when I write sheets, I never tell the drummer what to do. Like it's like he will know. It's
yeah. I mean,
it's always. I mean, unless it's something specific, like I would just say ballad.
exactly.
That's it. Okay,
Right, right, right,
go.
right, right,
So far, it was
right,
always good.
right.
So yeah,
But
you
I think this music is pretty much all about the drums. You know, Now I'm not saying that because I'm a drummer, but it
no,
just
but I agree, man. Yeah, I
it's
agree.
just it's true. It is what it is. It's so rhythmic based.
Yeah,
So and there's a vocabulary that's there that needs to be respected, and it's all these little things, but it's definitely about the drums,
yeah, yeah. I love
and
that.
the rhythmic aspect of this music,
Yeah.
you know.
You mentioned before the greats and then the R&B and the New Orleans aspect. Like when you were growing up, what got you excited for this music? I mean, for jazz, let's say, or improvisation. Was there like a specific moment, a record that you heard, or a
Man,
drummer that like you said like, oh, I want to do that?
no, they're like different stages, and it's funny. I was we were doing this master class yesterday, and David Gilmour was on it,
Mm,
and someone asked us who are some of the people we were checking out, and a lot of the things he said was the same things that we're around the same age, so a lot of the
yeah.
things he said was the same things I was thinking about. I was like, oh man, we were checking out kind of the same stuff, and but it was a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire,
Mm,
just all those bands with the horns and uh, you know, Cameo, and just I was all into Prince,
sure.
like I went to so many Prince concerts, and I was in that, and then being in around New Orleans, a lot of people think I'm from New Orleans. I'm from a small city, like maybe 2 hours away from New Orleans,
Mm, okay.
called Opelousas. But my grandmother lived in New Orleans, and at one point, when my parents moved to Opelousas, they were, my mom was teaching piano, my father was teaching music in the high schools or something like that, but he was also like a pianist for, a couple of churches. And so I was always around some music.
Yeah.
And but while my father he was getting another degree, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house in New Orleans. We were there like every weekend, like just, every weekend. So I spent a lot of time there, as a kid. And then this one incident happened. I was in the marching band and all this stuff in high school. And then a great jazz educator by the name of Alvin Baptiste
Hmm.
came to my high school. And a lot of his music is very New Orleans based, but at the same time, African based, and uh, with a lot of the rhythms that he was checking out, but also he was into train. So he was also into Earth, Wind and Fire. So he was a very eclectic kind of very open-minded individual. He was always talking about technologies on the horizon. We were doing things like playing charts simultaneously with one of the first computers. Like
Oh,
he was very forward thinking. So he's partly responsible for just the way I think about music in general. There's no holds barred. It's like whatever you you can throw in there is, hey, cool. Um, but he came to my high school with an orchestra. that was performing some of his pieces, and it blew me away, And so he was teaching at Southern University, and I went there to, kind of get next to him, not knowing that he retired that same semester. So I ended up being in the marching band, and I did that for, 2, 3 years, and then I saw Alvin Baptiste rehearsing his band in the music building. He wasn't officially teaching there again. He did eventually come back. But at that point, I was just walking through the halls of the music building, and I heard this music coming out of a room, and I looked through the window, and the drums were set up against the door, which said, nobody can come in, basically. And it kind of said, hey, we're serious, we're really serious. We're doing some serious stuff here. We don't want to be interrupted. But I got a chance to see the guy playing the drums, and I was like, man, blew me away by a guy by the name of Herman Jackson, who often played with Alvin Baptiste. But I heard the music, and it was some really deep stuff. It was way over my head at that point, But all I knew, I just knew it was amazing whatever they were doing, and I was like, you know what? That's a vehicle for me to be able to express myself in a different way on the drums, because as a drummer, depending on what you're playing, well, there's always a responsibility there,
Yeah.
but sometimes you got to lay in the pocket, which I totally respect. But simultaneously, I would always be hearing this other stuff that I would want to play, but probably not allowed to play in that particular genre that I was playing in. So when I saw this guy playing the drums like he was, I was like, okay, oh, they're playing jazz. Okay, so that's a vehicle where I can be a lot more expressive on the drums. I got a lot more freedom. All I got to do is figure out how to do it. So um, that was pretty much the turning point right there. And I got with Alvin Baptiste, and he eventually came back to the university to start teaching. And through him, I met a lot of different people, got a lot of opportunities. I learned so much.
Mm.
So that was definitely a turning point. And also one day, I was in one of the practice rooms playing piano. Like it was the same tune for like 2 semesters, and Alvin Baptiste would always hear me play that tune. And finally, I guess he got tired of hearing me play that tune, and he said, "Man, when you gonna write that out?" And you know, even that was over my head. I had never even thought that far to write it out. And all I knew is, I just knew I was hearing this music, and I'm messing around with it. Everybody else is messing around with the tune. Maybe I can mess around with the tune. So but I really dealt with that too long. Like he got tired of hearing it. He said, "Man, you should write that out." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I can write that out." So it was like, and that's once I started writing, it never stopped. I was writing a lot at that time.
Mm.
So I got a chance to and I was also writing for a percussion ensemble.
Oh.
So that kind of gave me a window into, composing and, just dealing with harmony, because drummers at that time didn't have a lot of chances to do that.
Yep.
And and in a lot of cases we're trying to do that, so it's, that's why it never, as a drummer, it never occurred to me to write something, you know. So he got on my case about that. So he was like, "Hey man, you need to write that out. What are you doing?" So I wrote it out for Big Band.
Oh,
Sounded horrible. So you go through these phases.
sure.
Everybody's throwing ball in the music. I'm throwing it back at me. Stuff like that. So, but I went back and fixed it, and then it eventually sounded presentable. But and, that's the beginning of your growth. You just keep hammering at it. And until your stuff sounds decent. And then you keep figuring it out and see what works, and you know a lot of guys helped me out along the way with that, you know.
Hmm.
So you know, I'm blessed in that regard,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, incredible, man. Huh. When did you decide to move to New York?
Yeah.
How did you base that decision on? What was the trigger? I mean,
Um, well, I think you know, just being on the New Orleans scene, I pretty much exhausted everything there was to do there. And, you know, before I moved, I'd eventually played in all the clubs in New York, you know, the big clubs. And I was playing with Mark Whitfield at the time
hmm
because we were
yeah,
both living in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And through him, you know, I got a chance to, you know, really get out there. I worked a lot with him. And after a while, I was like, you know, I need to get up out of here, you know. As much as I love the South, you know, that's still my heart. So, but you know, once you've kind of exhausted the
yeah,
situation down there, and it's like, you know, you kind of get a little lax, and you know, everything's easy going, and you know, you kind of want to go get your butt kicked a little bit, you know, because there are other people out there, and you know, you need to, you know, just maybe move and see some other things, get involved in some other things, and you know, and as soon as I moved, it you know, it kind of took off a little bit, you know.
hmm
They had you know, a couple of older guys who were really cool and putting me on in different situations, like Victor Lewis, you know,
Well,
we just hit it off, and he hooked me up, you know, he's one of my heroes.
oh man, sure, yeah,
So
that's
because he definitely didn't have to, you know. So he was one of the guys who was like, oh man, you know, check this guy out, you know, hey man, I got a gig for you, blah blah blah.
fantastic.
So I was like, oh, cool, cool. So, you know, one thing led to the next, and you know, you meet people and you know, blah blah blah. But that was one of the reasons I moved. It was just I kind of exhausted
Yeah,
the situation down
yeah.
there in Louisiana, and as much as I loved it, it was, you know, it's time for me to move on a little bit, you know.
Was it hard in the beginning in
Yeah.
New York? I mean, who were the first people you connected with in the first gigs you got? I mean,
Um. Um. Yeah, I don't know if it was. I mean, hey man, you know, you know, we're musicians. It's always hard. I mean, you know,
sure,
it's and, you know, hard is kind of relative. You know, your heart might be, you know, my
yeah,
heart, and
yeah,
my
sure,
heart might be totally different.
sure,
But uh, I can say it wasn't, you know, it wasn't a walk in the park, you know. But you know, man, you know, I played with so many people, man. You know,
yeah,
once I got here, it just I don't even know if I had time to think, you know, that it was hard.
yeah,
Um, because you know, I know a lot of good drummers who weren't working at the time, you know. So I've always known that, like, hey, man, you know, I'm really thankful to be out here because you know, you're in New York where there's like 1,000 other good drummers.
okay,
So you know, you always have to be thankful that you know you're the one in that seat. You know, there's only one drum seat per band. So, um, but you know, I got a chance to you know meet a lot of different people. You know, me and Orrin Evans connected, and you know, we started a long
yeah,
working relationship, and you know, a lot of different, you know, the Mingus Big Band, you
yeah.
know, it's all kind of different stuff.
How did you
You
start
know,
playing
got
with
a
the
chance to
Mingus?
hit with Russell Malone for, you know, a couple of, I think a couple of, maybe two or three cats who were in the band recommended me.
Oh, okay.
And, I just got a call to do it. Um, and I remember, you know, I called myself really preparing and everything. And we were supposed to have an early rehearsal the same day of the gig, and I showed up on time, you know, ready to get in there. Nobody showed up. Nobody. And people started walking in as it got closer to the gig. And so, obviously we never had the rehearsal. And I remember Frank Lacey looking at me like he said, "Hey man, you're just gonna have to get baptized in the fire." So, and it ended up being cool, And obviously I've, had something that worked for them. So, I've been a part of that situation ever since.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm really thankful for that. I got a chance to hit with a lot of different people and do a lot of different projects. I'm part of a situation, where we have a recording studio and, it's just a lot of different things. When I first moved, I was doing jingles in New York. When I first moved up here, a good friend of mine who actually named George Fontanet, he teaches at the New School, but he was also sort of an understudy of the great Bernie Drayden, who was responsible for like a lot of these really cool commercials in the 70s where you see, artists like, all kinds of artists, they were doing the same thing we're doing now. Sammy Davis, they were all on
Yeah.
these jingle projects, and he was really good friends with Freddie Hubbard. And so, all that stuff is kind of connected. My friend put me on, he brought me in a situation where I could make a little money and, get some residual money coming in real quick with doing these jingles. And so, I got my programming chops and all that stuff up, a long time ago,
Wow.
even before I moved, because we were doing stuff in college together. So, but he moved to New York before I did, and he got set up in this big jingle house. And so when I moved, he brought me into that situation, and so I got a chance to keep my programming chops up while simultaneously going out and doing hits and tours or whatever with different people. So uh, I was playing with Russell Malone for a couple of years, and
How was that like? I love Russell,
I
man.
got a chance to hit with a lot of people. Oh, it was great. I mean,
Oh,
Russell's
uh,
prime time, man. He's bad cat, one of the
yeah.
great guitar players out here. And at the time when I moved, I was still playing with Mark Whitfield, and who was a really good friend of mine and a great guitarist
Another
also.
monster, yeah.
So got a chance to play with Charlie Hunter. I played with him for a while.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So
Wow.
all these little things were oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And so and when I first met Charlie Hunter, he was opening for Mark Whitfield. And they were just like a trio opening up in California. And I was like, wow, this guy's, he's got some different stuff going on. So it's a lot of stuff just came for full circle.
Mm,
Um, you know. So hey, I'm blessed in that respect, man. I
yeah, yeah,
can't complain. I've been given a lot of opportunities, you
mm,
know.
yeah, yeah.
But I know it could have been any drummer up there, who can play, so you always feel blessed.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I like to kind of craft my own way. So, the way to do that is write some music, you know, put some
yeah,
stuff out there and see what happens,
yeah.
That's
That's
all you can do. And, I've been blessed in that regard to have like really good musicians playing my music and, and hey, man, and a lot of these guys are friends of mine also. So
important.
it's a good thing,
Yeah,
really, really good thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Donald, how did that relationship with Chris Cross and Jerry Deakins start? Because I think, Opus 5, I think that band is still active, must have been important, and that led to your projects as a band leader also further. And
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, we started the Opus 5 project, and then And we were playing tunes, some of well, everybody's tunes we were playing
Yeah.
on those Opus 5 records. It was basically, everybody bringing a tune. Let's decide what kind of stuff we want to do. Bring a tune. We'll see what happens. And a lot of that stuff had already been recorded, but I was like, oh, maybe I should record some of it again, with fresh ears, with more grown-up ears, and tweak some of them. And I have some killing cats playing it again, so let me try to just rework some of those tunes. And so I think through that and Jerry hearing my writing or whatever, it was pretty much an easy transition into me doing my own stuff.
Mm.
Just one day out of the blue, he was actually, I think I had spoken to him about it before we even started the Opus 5 stuff. And you know, it was like backstage somewhere, there's a lot of stuff going on. So that was probably the last thing on his mind, recording my record. But it eventually came around again, after the Opus 5 stuff, and it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing stuff with them ever since. And they're one of the few jazz labels out there, still doing this stuff. So and they do stuff how they do it, and they got a nice little working machine, and it's,
Yeah.
it's already set, and it's everybody's always cool. His son, who I'm working with now, is
Yeah.
a really nice guy, and you know makes things easy. But actually, my last record, I didn't do it for Crisscross. I
Yeah.
ended up selling it to them because it was basically done for the Chamber Music America thing, and one of my requirements as a Chamber Music America winner was to do a project. So that Color of Us record was really a project for Chamber Music America. And since we were already talking about me doing something for Crisscross, I said, look, I can sell you this record or we can do a whole new record.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I can do something else with the Color of Us. And they were like, no, we'll just buy the record and, make it easy on everybody. So it worked out,
Fantastic. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. How have you progressed as a band leader
Yeah.
in your own eyes, from, let's say, in the vernacular to now? I mean, were you immediately comfortable as a band leader, or like, or how?
No, because, you know, especially back then, man, if you if if you look at listening in the vernacular, I mean, all those guys were
The
pretty
band is
much like,
killing. Yeah, the band is like Christ,
I
man.
mean, it's and but these, even back then, those guys were friends. We were all friends at that point, and but still, they were much more established than I was. And but they were, always nice enough. Like some of those guys that played on demos that I did long before I did that record. Like some of that music at that point was old,
Mm.
So uh the fact that they recorded it, and the just the whole recording experience was a really nice thing, from where we did the record to staying in the facility where we did the record, and my mom bringing food to the
Oh,
session.
wow, that's
It
cool.
was like it was a big thing. We were all living. It was Daniel Lanois' home, which
Oh,
he had
wow.
converted into a
Yeah.
studio, sitting right in a nice area in New Orleans. And you could come down at 3 in the morning and turn on the board and listen to the record if you wanted. It was a great experience. And it was for this label, Leaning House Records, out of Texas. And they were trying to do some special stuff. And this music that I recorded, that's maybe like 5 or 6 other tunes that's not on that record.
Hmm.
And now that I say that, I totally forgot about that. I need to find those tunes. But yeah, that was so yeah, being comfortable as a leader, to go back to your question. No. Uh not so comfortable. It's just because I was in the midst of like some really great musicians, and I was probably the one with the least amount of experience. And
Mm.
at that point, man, I was just happy to be there. You know,
Yeah,
I was just happy to be in the same room. And playing my music. It was like, an unbelievable thing at that point.
yeah,
So, but as you go along, you realize, your strengths and weaknesses, and you eventually become a little bit more comfortable in your skin. So, and after doing it so much, you kind of know the do's and don'ts, the ins and
yeah.
outs of it, and so now I'm comfortable, but you know,
Takes time. Yeah,
and still there's a little thing there where it's like, I'm not uncomfortable, but I'm kind of like, I'm just, more looking for like, what are my musicians bringing to it now? Let me like really pay attention to what they're doing, and seeing if I could like filter some of that stuff into my music. But it's not really an uncomfortable thing anymore.
no, no, yeah.
It's,
But
it's
yeah,
uncomfortable in the fact that I have to do it, and I have to write it, and I have to organize it, and I have to get everything together, and I got to deal with my kid, and regular life, and
yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah,
so and
yeah.
that's what the previous record was about, Prelude to Real Life. It was like, okay, my daughter was just born, uh, you know, now the real stuff happens. So this is just like a little, musical soundtrack to what's about to go down, you know. So that's what that record was about,
Mm,
you know.
yeah. And all those
But
guys are band leaders as well, right? And composers. So it's quite,
yeah, exactly,
it's yeah.
exactly, exactly. So, I've even started playing their music in my live stuff, just
Oh
to
wow. Okay. Oh yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
make it a band effort.
You played Abraham Burton's
So
too on YouTube. Yeah, I saw that. Destiny.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, because like that gig was more about bringing in people into the fold that I've had a relation, I call it the friends and family clan. And it's like, all those people are like family to me. I got so much history with them. I played in Helen Sons band, tons. Uh, Ben Wolf's band, tons. Abraham Burton, tons. So it's, Jonathan Kreisberg, he was on, uh, our first time in Japan was together. He was
Mm.
going with my band. That was like my first tour.
Oh really? Oh wow.
Robert
Okay.
Glasper was on that record.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, we got all that history. And every time I would see him, he was like, "Yeah, man, we need to get the band back together." So I think something happened where Gilmore was really busy. So I was like, let me call Kreisberg back and see, get him back into the fold. And so I started playing a tune of his that we used to play, and so because you know when you're doing your own music all the time, it's like I said, a lot of that music, even when I did in the vernacular, some of those tunes I wrote before that.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's, and they've gone through a lot of different bands and a lot of different recordings. Like, two or three of those tunes have been recorded on three or four different records. So, you know, putting on a live performance is like, oh, I got to hear all my music again. Like, and I
Yeah.
and I think when you bring other people's music into the fold, now you got at least one tune that everybody really knows and that resonates with at least one person in the band. Because why? Because they're bringing one tune to the situation, and I think it makes the set a little bit more dynamic, and it's
Hmm.
more of a true band reflection. Because that particular band, we weren't playing all the time. It's not like the Color of Us band where we were doing a lot of gigs
Yeah.
before that, and I could play my own music. Why? Because they kept it so fresh for me. Like, they knew the music so well. I didn't really know what they were going to do all the time, which was the beauty of it for me. But if you're bringing in some new people and you got to play all your music, it's kind of like, let me just change it up a little bit and
Yeah.
bring their music into the fold. And then, we still have a dynamic set, but everybody has like their own little attachment to each tune. So,
Yeah.
that works well too. And after that, I kept the same theme. I might even record, some of their music next
Yeah.
record.
Sure.
I
It's
don't know,
different colors. Yeah.
but
I
it's
love
it's
that.
like, yeah. So, it's still me playing it and still us playing it. So I look at their body of work and I'm, in my mind, I'm like, oh, this tune would work. This tune would work, because remember, I like to write in collections, but this time I might not be writing all the tunes. But I still gotta think in collections.
Mm,
So I might
yeah.
take some of their music that's right for my project, or I could hear me playing on and, you know, uh, I like some of their music where I know I'm gonna feel natural playing on it, and it's and I'm playing their music, so
Yeah. It's
it's
important too.
we're all everybody wins, put it like that,
Definitely. Yeah.
you know,
Definitely. Beautiful, man.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Donald, not to take too much of your time, like what's on the schedule still for you for this year? I mean, I saw last year you played with Joey Calderazzo in
Oh
Europe, and like, but what's coming ahead for you in the upcoming months? And
man, I'm just trying to focus on this film stuff right now,
mm,
and talking about writing, I'm just starting to think about a new project. Um, I just came from Europe doing some stuff with Alex Sipiagin
mm,
and another bass player who lives out there. And but I'm trying to stay home a little more because of my daughter.
yeah,
But I like to I still like to go out every now and then and be on the road playing some good music. But I'm mainly starting to think about my stuff and my projects and what I want to do for this next project. I kind of have a sense of what I want to do, but you know you got to get to that point where you actually start writing. So that's kind
yeah,
of where I'm at right now. But I got this film stuff kind of hovering over my head. So it's hey man, we're musicians. We always got a hand in the pot. We're always doing something, working on something. But as far as touring stuff, I don't have a lot of touring stuff on the plate right now. I mean, there's stuff brewing, but I don't like to announce that
sure,
before
sure.
it's confirmed and
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah,
this business. You get to the last moment and it's not happening. So it's like, um, but I'm mainly just thinking about my project and I'm trying to do little small things in the city just to keep my band working and keep the experiment happening, because if I'm working every now and then in New York with my band, it's pretty much for a reason. Like
yeah,
I'm planning something.
yeah,
It's just I'm not, all those gigs are important, but they're mainly for just exercising the band and just exercising a concept and trying to, see if we can land on something cool.
definitely.
So
Beautiful.
that's kind of my process now,
Fantastic.
and I got like, sketches of tunes already done. I always sing something into my phone and I always come back to it. Sometimes it doesn't sound as cool, but
Yeah,
when you come back to it, but that's part of the process too. You hear some cool stuff in your head, you're like, okay, let me sing that real quick,
yeah, yeah,
and see if I like it, see if I like it 2 months later or something.
yeah.
But so I'm about to sit down and start putting all this stuff together and start kind of organizing my ideas and you know we'll see
Fantastic.
what happens.
Yeah,
Hopefully something comes out soon.
yeah. Looking forward, man, to a new record. So, I love your stuff, like I
Oh
said. So
man, thank you,
beautiful,
man. Thank you,
beautiful.
man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man.
Donald, I'll give you a nice Sunday so so you can chill or
All right.
compose. But
All right, man.
thanks for taking the time again. I appreciate it. And
Well,
hope
thanks for letting me use your platform, man. And
yeah, hope to catch you in Europe.
yes, that's indeed, man. So
Yeah,
you take care, brother.
you too. Okay.
We'll
Ciao.
talk soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Ciao.